Think we're live. Let's go check out the internets and see if we are actually on. Still a little bit new to this Rumble Studio thing. Yeah, there we go. It says upcoming. Yeah, there we go. I think we're live. Outstanding. All right. Well, hello everyone and welcome to Bob's Lunch Break where I am having my lunch. Actually, I just finished my lunch. I made some steak and eggs, scrambled eggs, and some steak pieces. I had bought about a quarter of a cow from a local rancher a while back, and I'm going through the last of it. And here, hopefully, another week or two, I will get another big chunk of cow, and it saves a lot of money on steaks instead of spending like $25 a pound at the supermarket. I'm spending like a quarter of that, which is glorious. And I highly recommend that everybody work out private deals with their local farmers. Anyway, um, today I wanted to share some thoughts. I've been thinking about this for a while, and today's episode's called "Do More Good Than Bad." And the idea is that a successful civilization is filled with people who overall contribute more to their community than they take. And when enough people take more than they contribute, then any civilization will eventually fail. This is what's happening with the rise and fall of the United States. This has been true throughout history across pretty much every civilization and culture. Their ups and downs are largely to do with people contributing more or taking more. And when we think about what makes a good person or a bad person, what makes somebody that we want to hang out with or somebody that we don't want to hang out with, or when we look at the totality of somebody's life, a lot of times it just comes down to what good do they do compared to what bad do they do. Why do people hate politicians so much? Well, because they generally take a lot more than they give. Why do people hate lawyers so much? Tobacco executives, snotty media personalities, because they tend to take more. If you look throughout civilization, or throughout history across all civilizations, the ones that rise generally have people contributing more. The early Roman Republic, people were building and creating and doing things and being selfless in their pursuit of improving their civilization. If you look in the early days of the United States, a lot of the people coming to this country were looking for a new life, and so they were contributing a lot. Um, if you look at just the people you like to hang out with, I had a I'm gonna go on a tangent here. Okay, I had a buddy. His name was Ed, and he was a bad person. He did lots of bad things, but we all loved him. And even though he did a lot of naughty things, but he was always the guy volunteering to cook Thanksgiving dinner. He was always the guy volunteering to help, help help you with your yard, or give you a ride when you were stuck, or help you um, you know, clean up at the office, or just, he was always helping people out, and he would put himself out for others. Yes, he made a lot of very questionable life decisions, and he hung out with some very questionable people, and this eventually led to his demise, in my opinion. But the reason we put up with him and we loved him was because he gave more than he took. On the other hand, I know countless people who live pristine, perfect lives. You couldn't find a fault with them on paper except that they're greedy, and they take, and they're always scheming and scamming and taking advantage of people. And even though they live the model of Christian holiness in their personal life, at least the appearance of it, they don't contribute anything. Look at all these predatory lenders out there. Look at all these people who manipulate and defraud Um, and it's true across, all demographics. Look at all this constant brouhaha with the illegals and ICE and all that. When I was a kid, I knew this Asian family is a large extended family, and some of them I'm pretty sure were not here legally, and they all, the ones who were here who had legal status, they ran businesses. The ones who were here illegally contributed and worked at the businesses, and they built a community in New York City, and they did good, right? And they took care of each other's kids, and they helped out, and they built something. I had no problem with that. And I knew this Mexican guy who was working for one of my clients' companies, and at the time he was had questionable legal status. We'll just put it that way. He's since, to my knowledge, gotten everything sorted out, but he was hardworking and he busted his ass and he did everything he was supposed to do, right? And then he eventually got his situation sorted out. Nobody had any problem with him. Yet, then when you look at a lot of look at all the Somali fraud in going on in Minnesota, right? People don't care whether they're here illegally or not. They're pissed off because they're stealing billions, right? Um, and it's not just foreigners either. It's also Americans too, right? Look at and look at all these big executives who are just pilfering the country, and the credit card companies that charge usury interest rates, charging 30% interest, and the big institutional investors buying up all the property and turning us into all renters, or just the scammers out there. They don't have to be foreigners; they can be Americans too, right? And what distinguishes whether you want somebody in your society or not really just comes down to this idea of, do they give more to the society than they take? And it's really just kind of that simple. Now, objectively, that's a hard metric to codify into law, right? Because um, governments are not the ideal tool for nuanced moral discussions, right? Asking some of the most immoral uh, people on the planet to make moral distinctions is counterproductive, right? But in your personal life and in your local community, hang out with good people who give more to the group than they take, and shun and avoid people who take more than they give. That's just sort of basic. That's a basic building block of civilization. And I've been thinking about this for a while. How do I simplify it down that everybody can talk about it? Like when you marry a woman or a man, either way, marry somebody who gives more to the relationship than they take. When you go into business with somebody, go into business with somebody who contributes more than they take. Um, I have amazing employees at my company. Why? Because I hired people who contribute more than they take. They genuinely care about people, and they genuinely care about their community. Or look at why, look at some of our various billionaires. Why some people are hated, some people are loved, right? Um, Elon is generally well respected. Yes, he takes a lot from the government. He also gives a lot back. Does he give more than he takes? Well, that's sort of the debate, right? But I would argue that he probably, with like SpaceX and Tesla and all the stuff that he does, he probably gives more than he takes, and that's why people generally like him. I know there's a lot of political brouhaha because he supports Trump and all that, and the bad orange man and whatnot. But if you look at him objectively outside of the politics, he's genuinely trying to give more to society than he takes. I mean, the guy has a house that's smaller than mine, right? And he sleeps on the factory floor half the time. So, he's not just living it up. On the other hand, you have somebody like, let's say, Soros, who, whether or not he's breaking any laws, he genuinely, manipulates, financial markets and contributes to groups that disrupts countries, and he plays currency markets and pulls a lot of funny business. Or why was Mitt Romney so hated? Because he would go in, his Bain Capital would go in and buy out companies, destroy them, and sell off the assets for a profit, right? He didn't contribute anything. He didn't create anything. He just took. Um, why did everybody like Jimmy Carter so much? Awful president. Guy spent his life outside of office contributing to Habitat for Humanity, building lots of houses and whatnot. Everybody liked the guy, you know? And you can look at this across any political spectrum, any demographic. I've got a buddy of mine in New York, he's, way further to the left than I am to the right. I'm more of a kind of I don't know what the hell I am these days because the left and right have gotten just so crazy. But, he's very far to the left. He is constantly giving to the community and donating his time and building community and doing, good things, right? And he's giving of himself. People love the guy. I love the guy. He's awesome. Doesn't matter if we agree on everything or not, right? You can be in a room full of people that you vehemently disagree with if everybody's all trying to contribute to society. And you'll build a better place that way. On the other hand, you could have somebody that you agree with, in principle, but if they're constantly taking and taking and taking, it's just a matter of time before they screw you. They're dangerous. They're a liability. You can't be around people like that. So now let's narrow it down from a civilizational level down to your personal level, right? Just like in a civilization, you don't want people who take more than they give. In your personal life, if somebody takes more than they gives, you have to distance yourself. My lawyer, one of my lawyers told me something really, really true once. He says the moment somebody becomes a liability, you have to cut them out of your life and distance yourself from them, because then it's just a matter of time before they take you down. And that's true. And I've avoided a lot of problems and headaches in my life because I avoid hanging out with people who are objectively uh, liabilities. That being said, you can extrapolate that to pretty much any system out there. So I think this might be kind of a theme of mine that I'm going to talk about going forward this year, just focusing on doing more good than bad. Because what I really want to do is I talk to people, we get so in the weeds about politics and culture and all these little nuanced details that really just get promoted so that we are so busy fighting with each other that we don't pay attention to the people who are screwing us all, right? And it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican or independent or whatever, right? Most of the people running the show are taking more than they're giving, and that's why we are always getting screwed. And the system originally was designed that people would voluntarily contribute to their communities and build things, right? We didn't have taxes until World War I. I think we had a temporary tax in the Civil War, and then that went away. But, up until World War I, we didn't have really an income tax, and we still had roads and bridges and all this stuff because people would contribute to their communities more than they took. And even up until, more recently, taxes stayed relatively minimal, and then once World War II happened, things started getting pretty crazy afterwards. Um, so if you want to fix your life and fix your country and fix your civilization, doesn't matter whether it's the United States or any other country, it all comes down to people contributing more than they take, and that's kind of my lunchtime thought for today. So I hope you like these kinds of sit downs. If you like them, subscribe to the channel, like the video. I'll do more of these. And I'm going to get back to the office. I've got some stuff I have to do this afternoon. And mention in the comments things that you'd like for me to talk about, because I'm always looking for ideas. And maybe I'll start doing kind of a regular lunchtime stream for a few minutes. I'll be back on tonight, hopefully playing video games if I'm not too tired from work, because I like to unwind and relax with you guys. And we'll see how it goes. So thank you and goodbye.